So
would you say that there's a couple of things I want to talk. Would you say that you mentioned being typically pessimistic?
mhm.
Would you say that this has helped shift your perspective now to a more optimistic? You can see the glass half full, at least when it comes to your health and your outlook now on life.
So 1,000%, but I'll tell you why. So when you go to transplant, you have to see a shrink.
Oh, wow.
Yes, all patients have to see a shrink because you're reconciling two new identities. My identity as a 32-year-old woman living with sickle cell disease, and I'm now having to reconcile it as a 34-year-old woman who doesn't have the disease, but still experiences the triggers and still has chronic pain that she's managing and still has some other effects from having,
Yes.
I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
My identity is an ongoing process. I always tell people, like, when you ask me how I'm doing, it's depending on the day or the week, you know? So when I saw the therapist I have now is a very remarkable woman, and I'm incredibly blessed to have her in my life because she's helped me to unlearn a lot of things that at the time protected me and helped me, but in my adult years haven't served me.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? With sickle cell.
Like what? Give us an example.
Yeah, so with sickle cell, I didn't make excuses and I pushed myself because I didn't want anyone to treat me any different than they would someone else, right?
Hold on one second.
Yeah. So with sickle cell, I would, because I don't want to make any excuses and I still want to deliver at tip-top shape, I would push myself to the limit in delivering things and in hiding. You know what I mean? And sometimes I wouldn't necessarily care about the quality of the work as opposed to just getting the thing done so that I'm not the one that's leaving the team lagging behind. But I think now I've come to a place where I recognize that sickle cell isn't everything that I am. There's so much more. There's so many layers, and the innate need of wanting to always overcompensate and wanting validation, like, please, because for a lot of my life, in my brain, this is how I rationalized it. If on a personal level, people said I was a 6 out of 10 in terms of personality, on a physical level, I was a 2 out of 10. So because in my brain, my grade was so low in that one facet of life, I was always an overachiever. Wunmi isn't in one organization. Wunmi is in like 4. Wunmi is not doing one job. Wunmi has 2 jobs because I always wanted people to feel like you're a doer. You're not lazy. You're not defined by your invisible disability. Physically,
Yeah.
I don't look blind. I don't look disabled. So there's a tendency to assume nothing is happening. And with sickle cell, the disparity is that the pain we feel, people can visually see that. We're not bleeding out like someone that was shot. You know what I mean? So a lot of the times people underestimate what we are dealing with and we feel internally. So in my personal life, what I found was in relationships, in friendships, I was doing the most. I want to be liked so much. I want to feel like the friend that is there for you through thick and thin. So I'm giving all of myself and not reserving any space to take care of myself. I'm just pouring. So a lot of the time I kind of felt like I was going through the world like an empty vessel. I had nothing more to pour into people. So that added to my pessimism, because when you have nothing to pour into anyone else and you're like a dry spell, then of course you're going through life being like, look, man, if a train hit me and a car ran me over, I wouldn't be pissed. I would be pissed if I was alive, but if that killed me, I'd be fine with that. You know what I mean? But I think now I'm in a place where I'm making plans for the future and I'm not canceling. When I tell people like, oh yeah, let's schedule a lunch or let's do coffee in 2 months, I'm not afraid that, like, what if I get admitted? Why am I making plans so much in advance when sickle cell show up? Or why am I planning a trip? Every vacation I've been on, I've been sick. Every single city I've been to over the course of my life, the first place I Google when I land in a new city is where's the nearest ER? Because my the airplane ride, my disease gotta show up. It just gotta show up. You know what I mean? So because
Wow.
of all of those things, I think now I'm in a space of self-acceptance. And I also recognize that like my self-care is equally, the way I pour back into myself is just as important as the way I pour into everyone else. Nothing comes. So it's really shifted my way of thinking, my way of seeing the world, my way of investing in relationships now, because I know I will live to see my 34th birthday. I will live to be 40. I will live to have children and get married. Getting married was not a priority for me for a lot of my life because I was like, why would anyone want to marry me? I'm a,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a handicap, but like, I'm a burden. Why would anyone want to be with someone that's so, like, her life is so complicated instead of us to be like, oh, let's go on a date or let's go on vacation. I'm asking you, sorry, did you check that the airline can give me oxygen, for takeoff? Did you check to make sure the hotel is put? It's complicated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's really shifted. I would say it's now I think I'm an optimist, and now God has showed up for me. So my relationship with God is a lot more deeper because when you bare your soul to your maker and you say, end my life before I turn 30 because I don't have the fight to do it
There's
anymore.
no, yeah,
And
I've got no
somebody
more.
says, you see what you wanted? Here you go. You've got to, there's a level of gratitude and appreciation, but it's almost like all right, God, I'm not alone. It felt like that for a long time. But now in so many ways, you showed up and showed out for me
Yeah.
that I have nothing to be pissed about anymore. I have no excuses to just be like, ah, well, life is shit.
It's like, having a new leash on life.
Yep.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, have being that I've lived with this my entire life, I know what it's like I've described earlier. I and possibly it's because of it could be because of it not being as severe as what some other people experience, but I've I've always had this glass half full mentality, like, okay, I'm not this. This isn't me,
Okay.
right? This isn't who I am. I don't even though yes, it affects me, even though yes, I cannot see, right? I literally, my vision has been in every part of every organ in my body has been affected. I cannot run. I cannot do sports. I cannot do, X, Y, and Z because of the fatigue and, the limitations that I know my body has, right? It's I've always still looked at myself and just, okay, moving forward, you know. Um, I plan to live till I'm 94
That's
because
amazing.
that's when my grandfather died.
Okay.
My grandmother 97.
Oh,
But
wow. That's a lot of longevity in your family. That's amazing.
yeah, and so I'm great. I look forward to it. I want to become old, and I've never had that. Um, and again, it could be because it hasn't been as severe as often, or I've had severity where I've been in the hospital several times over my life. It's not as much as or as frequently as probably some other people, but like, yeah, I, I've tried to not make it or or have it be something that I feel is a part of me that is a limiting thing, kind of like you. And I also don't feel the need to overcompensate for anything. Hey, you guys want to go running? That's great and all. I'll be home. uh,
Could
y'all
that
want to do
be a personality trait, or could that just also be because you're a guy as well? Do you think? Do you think that's
possibly both? I think more so my personality. My personality is more chill. I'm very chill. I'm very, hey, it's all good. No issues. There's nothing that really gets me like riled up that I feel like, oh my God, you know. And so always just had this mindset like, okay, I'm gonna make it. Yes, my doctors didn't think I would make it to even be 10, like something that I'm sure you were familiar with as well. Of course, I made it to 10. I mean, I'm alive till today by God's grace. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's just a sureness, a knowing that, right? It's just a knowing, right? You have this knowing that everything's gonna be okay. I'm good. Like, okay, X, Y, and Z may happen. Look, this cabinet right behind, all my medications. I'm a pharmacist and I have a mini pharmacy right there, right? I have a nebulizer machine that I can hook up if I need to. Thankfully, I don't really need to use it that much, thankfully, but I'm ready. If I'm going on any trip, I take it with me. I try to make sure that I'm, God forbid, God forbid, you don't want to be, caught.
What you need, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but God has been good. And, uh, I, yes, I've had my fair share. I've been in a hospital in the ICU. Like I was describing to you yesterday, I've been in a hospital 10 days dealing with pneumonia. And also piggyback to what you said, for me, that's what triggers it for me, right? A lot of times it's the colds, the seasonal,
Yeah.
the seasonal flu, whatever. So I always get my flu shot. I always, I've gotten my pneumonia vaccines, all this stuff. Like you have to, because you can't take the chance of, right? Our body just may not be able to handle it. So, yeah, usually what triggers me more than often to go into a hospital, to the point where I'm so sick that I have to go into a hospital, is this crazy weather here in Texas. One day it's 40 degrees, the next day is 75 for a whole week, and your body just doesn't know what to do. You catch a cold, it keeps going, it doesn't get any better. You're, taking Theraflu and whatever, but somehow that can trigger pain crises for me. And then from there, medication's not working, I got to go to the ER. Right. That's kind of how that has played out for me in the past. And so I definitely relate to a lot of what you say. And I
Let me go grab another bottle of water. Sorry.
Yes, please. Yeah. So we had to take a quick, break, but we're back, and I think you were telling us just about the transplant afterwards, your identity, and trying to reconcile all of that. And off the camera, I was just telling you about, or we were talking about, I guess, the decision to be more outspoken about it, because you mentioned you tried to reach out to people. You reached out to people that had gone through the transplant, and you weren't really able to find or get anyone to speak to you that was willing to speak to you about it, because they didn't want to really relive that trauma. Whereas you found someone, thankfully, in Australia, who didn't even go through the transplant for sickle cell, but it was for leukemia. And he was willing to speak to you, and you were telling me how much that helped you, and and so, yeah, let's pick up from kind of that, and kind of what your decision, or how your decision to kind of be a bit of more of an advocate, be more open, speaking about sickle cell, speaking about transplants, and just bringing more awareness to that, because that's more of some of the realm that you've shifted into, and all of this stuff now. And yeah.
Okay. So post transplant, I think I made the executive decision to kind of talk about this because for me, I just think it's incredibly unkind when you've gone through something and you could give advice, but you're choosing not to. At the same time, I think for me, I always say what I bring to the table is three perspectives. The first perspective is that of the patient, because I've lived through sickle cell. The second perspective is that of someone with medical expertise, because I was with pre-med, and when you stop a career in medicine, it doesn't mean all of your knowledge goes or all of your life experience goes. It just means you familiarize yourself with medical terminology and you understand the science behind curative therapies or treatments for people with sickle cell disease. Then the third perspective is now I'm on the other side. So I'm navigating a new identity. I'm trying to figure out what it means to not have sickle cell, but to still be dealing with iron overload, avascular necrosis, a lot of the debilitating symptoms that you get from living with sickle cell over a period of a long time. In my case, over the period of 3 decades, and why I'm choosing to articulate things in the way I've done in terms of my advocacy work is because no one is going to do it like me. No one is going to think like me. My brain lives in the space of branding and PR. So there's a way in which I storytell that you can't necessarily replicate because your mind doesn't work the way mine is. Mine lives in a creative space. So there's a way in which I advocate for sickle cell patients that's different from the average person advocating in this space, because I don't talk to you as someone that's preachy. I talk to you as someone who's relatable, but also injecting doses of humor and sarcasm, where you almost feel like you're on the ride with me. I'm not telling you have to do things this way. I'm not telling you have to go this path. I'm not an expert by no means. All I'm saying is, here's my research, here's credible information, here are the resources. But if you want me to simplify it for you, here's the simple thought process. And I think that relatability is why people have gravitated towards my content and my work the way they have. There's nothing that I think I'm doing that's like extraordinary. And for me, yes, the NIH is a federal agency, but I've always wondered, my transplant doctor is from Korea. So the moment I met him, all I could think of in my brain, and even my mom said it the moment he left the room, was, why is an Asian doctor performing a transplant for a disease that mostly plagues the POC community, primarily people of African or Afro-Caribbean descent? But what we forget a lot of the time, there's a human being that's inspired to do what they're doing. A lot of the people that, and I don't know what your experience, a lot of the people that have taken care of me in my journey as a sickle cell patient are white or Latino. So why would they do that if over the course of my 34 years, I've only had in the US, I've only had one doctor that was Black, and she was Nigerian. So I understood why she did sickle cell. It was that kind of unspoken thing where you're like, either lost somebody in your family or you have somebody in your family that has sickle cell. So it's personal for you. But to the white doctors, I don't know why they did it. So with the work I've done, with the advocacy work I've done, is I've kind of gone to the NIH, specifically the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, the NHLBI, and I've said to them, you guys are doing this amazing work. You guys gave me the miracle that is my life now. But what you forget is everything sounds like medical jargon. To someone who doesn't come from a science background, they're like, oh, so many big words, so many things that have to happen. Oh, I don't want to do it. And because of that, they just, sometimes we shut what we don't know. We fear what we haven't unpacked. So for me, in my approach to advocacy, it's more so, this is me. Here's how I hope you see elements of yourself in me. And this is why I think if you know what sickle cell is, you might be that person that changes or alternates how another patient is treated. If you only take off your rose-colored lenses and put on one that makes you come from a place of empathy and understanding as opposed to judgment. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You mentioned about while we're offline that some, you've had people reach out, or physicians or people reach out to you to speak to other patients that are trying to go through. Can you talk about that a little bit? People who are on the verge of.
Yeah, so over the course of these 2 years, I've either had my therapist or my doctor reach out to me and say, we have this patient who is good to go. They've gone through the preconditioning stage. They've gone through chemo and radiation. We were about to start and they tapped out and said they didn't want to do it. Can you have a conversation with them? And it's because sometimes as a patient, you want someone who's walked those shoes with you. When doctors know the science, but they don't know the pain. It's like the reason in race when we always say, like white people want our rhythm, but they don't want our blues. You can't love us and not want them because they just go, it's like love and hate. They're just certain things that are synonymous, but they go with one another like salt and pepper. So in cases like that, my approach to patients, it's gonna suck. I'm not gonna BS you. I'm gonna be really honest and direct. It's gonna suck. But what I will tell you is this: oh my God, are you on the cusp of a life that you've never imagined? Before I did my transplant, one of the other advice that the Australian guy gave me is he said, on the flight to your transplant or before you go, write down all the things you've always wanted to do without sickle cell. And literally on my list, I'm checking things off. One of the things on my list was I wanted to write in a major publication about my journey with sickle cell, right? And I said it to myself, but I think for me, I'm a writer. Like writing is my way of dealing and unpacking my thoughts and my emotions, So when I wrote my very first piece in Essence, I thought it was a one-off. I genuinely thought it was a one-off thing. Like they would just like publish this thing because they feel sorry for this Black girl that went through all of this hardship and wants to talk about this. And then they would never come back. They would never want to post anything after that. And so I said, if this is my one opportunity to write, what do I want the world to know? And I took a moment and I said, I want it to be a love letter because sickle cell is the rock on which I've built my perfectly imperfect life. Like I had to, and like, this is like a direct quote, and I don't know why I'm getting emotional, but like I had to figure out how to love her and work with her before I was able to fully manage my illness. I think for a long time, I was so resistant to wanting to even understand the disease. I was just kind of like, oh God, what is this? It's like a rain on my parade, And the more I resisted sickle cell, the more it worked against me. So now, because I'm in a space now where I understand it and I know how to work around it, me speaking to patients, because I'm literally just reflecting in them myself. And I'm saying, this is what is gonna suck. Oh, but when you go through something that normally would have triggered and then nothing hits, there's a space in your heart, there's that sweet satisfaction that you can feel there's been a shift. You know what I mean? Like to live a life where I never could work out before. Like when people are working out, I'm not one of those people that's like, yeah, fit fam, yoga pants, this is awesome, because I'm just always exhausted. Yeah. But now I'm like into yoga, I'm doing low impact exercises, and I'm realizing some of the pain I thought was sickle cell was not sickle cell. It was getting older and having a different metabolism and carrying my weight differently and figuring out. So all of the pain meds that sometimes I was taking to alleviate one was pain that the rest of the world is experiencing. And I just needed to straighten my spine better. You know what I mean? Or do more stretches. And uncovering layers to myself that I didn't know existed. So when I speak to patients, I'm always coming to them from the standpoint of I'm your homegirl, I'm your girlfriend. I'm gonna be honest with you. But what I can also guarantee you is on those really shitty days, guess what you've got that I didn't have? You've got someone who's been there and will know the exact thing to say to you to get you out of whatever crawl space that you found yourself. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Have you had patients that when you they want to tap out, they want to quit, they want to? And then, oh, you've had both.
I've had both. I've had a patient who said, I can't, I'm not you. I'm not strong. I don't have the strength. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not you, you know? And a lot of those that I've met with that kind of resistance, it's because, and I feel like this even, the more, so basically after my transplant now, the Center for Cancer Research at the NIH have kind of done a deep dive into understanding the way my mental psyche works, because other patients that have done a transplant, nothing changed. They still do what they were doing before. They're either still not going to school or never did get that degree because they were like, the stress that school was putting on my body, I never did graduate with that degree, or they've just given up on life. Whereas I'm using this as an opportunity to reinvent myself. Some are just fine. They're like, I'm fine living on a social security check, you know? So I've met patients that for me, I'm like, well, now that you're on the other side, don't you want to give back? And they're like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want a reminder of what traumatized me for the most of my life? Why would I want the world to know? Like, I'd rather hide that, lock it, like beat that monster, lock it in the room and throw away the key and move on, you know? So I've had both on both fronts, but when I hear the fear, all I can do is, I've done my job, I've spoken to you. But guess what? I also recognize that timing is everything.
Yeah.
Maybe if I had done my transplant in 2018, I wouldn't have made it. Maybe it would have been a different set of doctors. Maybe over the course of when you're sick in the hospital and you deal with different providers is when you realize having a great team is sacrosanct to your health, your overall well-being. You have that one person on your team that is just choosing to negative, and it would just feel like nothing is working. So even at different times of my recovery, I've had one person I didn't get along with, or one person that didn't understand me as a patient, and it's just been a roadblock, you know? So sometimes for these kind of patients, I'm not in their shoes. They're going through a transplant in the midst of a global pandemic. The risks for them are higher. So I can't speak to that because I did mine before the pandemic hit. So their mental psyche now, a lot of people, this pandemic has really shifted their thought process. A lot of people that before were like, that's why you notice now a lot of companies are hiring because people are saying, I hate this job. It's a dead end job. If life can end like that, I don't want to be in a dead end job. You know what I mean? So I also kind of put that into context and go in saying timing is important. If they're not ready, they're not ready because I can't physically hold their hand through it. I just can't. You know.
Have you also had patients that you did speak to and
Yeah.
they did they did?
Yes. So now with the way and I'm sure you know this. So now transplants are offered in Italy, Canada, the US, and the UK. So I've had a couple of specifically like Nigerian, I wouldn't even say they're patients because it's always their mom or dad that contacts me first before I meet the person, where they'll reach out and they'll say, I'm going to be honest with you. I just don't want my child to be in pain anymore. So we're doing this transplant because their little brother or their little sister is a match, or my husband is a match. And we're doing this transplant, but I just don't want my child to be in pain, but they're scared. And I don't know what to say to reassure them. I don't know what to do. And having those conversations, especially because I always do the thing is I read the room. If the person I'm speaking to is not doing the phone, then I just come back to a place of humility. And I go, look, you're a small girl. You're only 8 years old. You haven't really seen life. What your mom and dad are doing for you right now gives you an opportunity to see all facets of life, regardless of what your interests are. I know you're scared, but I'm your sickle cell tribe. I'm part of your tribe. I will always be. For as long as I have air in my lungs, you can call me, you can text me at any time of the day. You know, my job and my role in that position is to give them as much advice, but never steer them in the wrong direction. There are sometimes when I say, I can't advise on this because I don't know about this. And I don't feel comfortable giving my recommendation or advice, not knowing the full picture. Because with healthcare, you also need to know everything that's at play. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. If you're missing a piece, then you're not seeing the full picture.